Thank you, Cathaoirleach, and thank you, Minister, for taking the time to come into the Seanad this morning. Education is of critical importance to children and young people, but education is more than what many perceive as just schooling. Education is a foundation for healthy development throughout the lifespan. Education is freedom, freedom to think and creatively, freedom to play and freedom to imagine. Education is learning about difference and diversity and recognising the value of each and everybody's contribution. For many children, however, school can be difficult. That is especially true for children with special educational needs and disabilities, for whom education poses all sorts of additional challenges. On occasion, school can be so difficult for young people who require additional support that a school can struggle to appropriately meet their needs. In certain instances, this can lead to breakdown of school placements, leaving vulnerable children with additional needs without an educational placement. I want to be clear that I'm not singling out criticism for our teachers, SNAs and learning support teachers. What I'm attempting to highlight today is that some of our schools currently do not have enough resources to meet the needs of each individual child or young person in Ireland. We often hear disability rights organisations and activists speak of being disabled, people being disabled by their environment. And this is also true for children with SEND or in our educational settings. In 2018, Thomas Bourne TD sought data from the Department of Education regarding the number of children with SEND who had been subject to the Section 29 procedure of the Education Act, which allows for a parent or guardian to appeal a school's refusal to enrol a child in an educational placement. What this data demonstrated was that SEND children are disproportionately represented within these appeals process, which ultimately suggests that children with SEND are disproportionately refused enrolments in schools and are subsequently expelled from schools in disproportionate numbers. What remains unclear, however, Minister, is the precise number of children with SEND who have suffered a breakdown in their school placement, whether temporary or permanent. Additionally, I'm seeking clarity regarding the investigation processes into the breakdown of educational placement for children with special educational needs by your department or the National Council for Special Education. I suspect, Minister, that you may say there is a complaints process for schools which any family can use to make any complaint. If it roughly goes, raised with teacher, raised with principal, raised with board, raised with ombudsman. There is the Education Welfare Act, which creates Section 29s, etc., for suspension and expulsion, and that there is forthcoming legislation in terms of the School Charters Bill. Complaints procedures for schools give schools too much power. The schools control the pace of the process, and the processes which can take time at times take 2 full years to work through. As well as this, boards do not have the adequate skills to meet the needs of SEND students, which they consistently demonstrate by allowing reduced timetables to persist or refusing to open autism classes. Furthermore, when a placement breaks down, the ombudsman is seriously constrained, because if it goes legal, his process has to stop, and then sometimes the court won't let you raise the issues which the ombudsman may have addressed. The biggest problem here, though, is it allows the child's rights to be severely impacted before the state does anything. There is no proactive measure to stop discrimination or uphold the Equal Status Act. The state is being behaving negligently as a result. Will the Minister recognise that this is morally unacceptable, that the statute books presently allows the same policy document which deals with a student who is bullying or harassing another student or teacher, code of behaviour, to also use the same process to deal with a student with additional needs who is not capable of being responsible for a meltdown which you cannot control, or who cannot communicate sometimes using words? Minister, despite the lack of statistics surrounding SEND students who are subject to Section 29 of the Education Welfare Act, it is clear that the Act, as it stands, is not fit for purpose. In conclusion, Minister, I am calling on you to provide us with the figures for the number of SEND children who have experienced a breakdown in their school placement, either temporary or permanent, and as well as this, that your department begin the process of reviewing the Education Welfare Act in order to ensure that those children and families who go to the state owes the highest duty of care are placed at the heart of the Act. I therefore urge you, Minister, to work compassionately, understandingly and exclusively with SEND children and their families to find out what they require in order for their needs to be met. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ruane. I now call on Minister Madigan.
Thank you, Chair and Senator. And it's my belief that children with SEN should receive their education in placements which are appropriate to their needs alongside their peers wherever possible, and unless such an approach will be inconsistent with the best interests of the individual child or other children in the school. And this approach is consistent, as we know, with the EPSON Act 2004, and my department's policy therefore, is to provide for the inclusive education of children with special educational needs in mainstream schools, and the majority of children with special needs attend mainstream education with additional supports. And in circumstances where children with more complex SEN requirements, then a special school or indeed a special class place should be provided. And this policy, as we know, you mentioned resources, Senator, and as you know, the Department continues to prioritise investment in special education. And this year we have 2 billion which is being spent on special education. And there will be I mean, that investment, when you're talking about a figure, you need to be able to demonstrate where that money goes. This year, we have 13,600 special education teachers in the system, in the special education system. That is actually a 40% increase since 2011. We also have 18,000 special needs assistants. That's an increase of 70% since 2011. And considerable work has also been undertaken this year to plan and provide for specialist places. We're also opening 2 new special schools and 269 new special classes this year. The National Council for Special Education, Senator, you'll be aware, has primary responsibility for coordinating and advising on the education provision for children nationwide, and it has well-established structures in place for engaging with schools and with parents. And the NCSC seeks to ensure that schools in an area can cater for all children who have been identified as having special educational needs. And you're specifically asking me around the breakdown of school placements, or indeed if school placements are at risks. And when the NCSC becomes aware of a school placement which is at risk, it will engage with the family and the school to agree a plan to support the placement. And this plan may involve training and support being provided for the schools from the NCSC staff. It may also involve the NC engaging with the HSE and also with NEPS, the National Educational Psychological Support Service, in order to establish what other supports or guidance may be provided to a school in order to support that child, because that joint approach that you talk about is really important. And in some circumstances, the NCSC may also arrange for additional supports and resources such as assistive technology or indeed additional special needs assistance. And there's also additional training programmes and guidance that can be given to the school as well. It's important as well to point out, and I'm not saying that you're saying this, by the way, but that transfer between settings, it shouldn't be considered or categorised as a placement breakdown, because often there can be a child in mainstream that's moved to a special class or a special school, and that's not a placement breakdown. It's simply in the best interest of the child to move to that particular environment. There's also the home tuition grant, as you'll be aware of that, Senator, which provides 20 hours home tuition per week as an interim measure. And also around Section 29, as you know, that allows for appeals against the decision of a board of management of a school to suspend or permanently exclude a student, and where a parent feels that a school has unfairly suspended or expelled a child from school, then an appeal mechanism is provided for. And everything that is possible should be done to ensure that placements for children with special education needs do not break down.